Greetings metalheads and welcome to No Nonsense Metal Reviews. I'm George and today we have another episode of my favourite EPs. So if you've seen the first three parts in this little mini-series, if you want to call it that, the whole idea here is that I personally feel that EPs can be undervalued, underappreciated and actually can sometimes contain material which is just as good, if not better, than some of the material that we will have on a band's full-length studio album releases. So when I actually started doing this, came up with this idea and started doing these little episodes in the first place, I really didn't anticipate that it would stretch out to so many parts. I thought, going through my collection, I thought, these ones are the obvious choices for me. There's a handful. I think I picked 5 or maybe 6 initially, and then once I'd done that, once I'd made those choices, there were more. I suddenly came across more and more and more, and now I have another 3 EPs, and I can say definitively that this will not be the end of this little mini-series, but I have 3 more EPs that I feel fit together quite nicely. The reason I picked these 3, and I'm only doing these 3 together, is that I feel that these 3 in particular, these EPs, are of absolutely massive significance and hugely important in the development of what became the second wave of black metal and also just extreme metal and death metal in general. So we'll kick off with the first choice, released in 1984, containing one of the worst album covers ever. It is so typical of the time, that Venom influence and Motorhead influence. We've got bullets, we've got spikes, we've got chains. It's got it all going on there. This is Destruction with the Sentence of Death EP. Now this one, for me, contains some of the best Destruction songs. I love those early albums with Infernal Overkill and Eternal Devastation. I think those are such fantastic albums with some genuinely amazing material. When you consider that this EP contains tracks like Total Disaster, Black Mass, Mad Butcher, of course in its primary form. A few years later, it featured on the Mad Butcher EP in a slightly different form, but we get this early version here, Satan's Revenge and Devil's Soldiers. So we've got some really brilliant stuff here. Certainly when you take Total Disaster and Black Mass, Mad Butcher, those are Destruction staples, those are classics, those are fan favourites. Personally for me, I absolutely love those first 2 tracks there, Total Disaster and Black Mass. I feel that overall, although you could say that this is thrash metal, Destruction at this stage are very firmly rooted in that traditional heavy metal style. There are little utterances of Saxon and Iron Maiden and Diamond Head here. You can hear the influence in their music, but it is thrash. It is certainly faster, it's a little bit more extreme, but the delivery of the music, their musicianship, and the way that it's executed, the speed, the tempo, the pace, you can understand why this material here and this band at this early stage in their career was such a massive influence on what became that second wave of black metal with bands like Dark Throne and Mayhem. But I think this is a fantastic EP and I absolutely love those tracks there. It's raw, it's energetic, it's got power, it's just great. And if you're not familiar with this, you will almost certainly have heard Mad Butcher, but Total Disaster as well, another renowned Destruction classic, and do check out those tracks. That is a fantastic EP. Up next, and this one certainly fits in very nicely with the theme and the place, another German band, 1985, released what is undisputably one of the earliest second wave of black metal releases. I'm talking about Sodom with In the Sign of Evil. one of the German Teutonic thrash metal three. In their early incarnation, at this point in their career, 1985 when this came out, they sounded like a perfect blend of Venom, of Motorhead, and a little bit of that kind of Teutonic aggression. It sounds fantastic. It's not the crispest, clearest production, nor are they the tightest and most professional musicians, but they've got energy. It has the same charm and the same character for me that bands like Venom and Motorhead, certainly in those early stages, that they had. It's fast and loose, it's heavy, and it's got attitude. There's a punk undertone there as well. Not the same as Destruction, who are, I think, much better musicians, perhaps. Certainly, they showed a lot more musical capability and progressive elements. The fact that you had great guitar work, great leads, solos, you had some pretty solid drumming. But Sodom, on the other hand, went for full out speed, high tempo, high paced stuff. It's fast and it's loose. It is heavy. And we've got some really great tracks on here. Outbreak of Evil, that's a brilliant song. It's got so much of that Venom influence, that Venom attitude. It's a great track. It's very much an early black metal song. You can hear how this was such a significant influence. Sepultura Voice, another good one. But Blasphemer, that's a brilliant track. Witching Metal, which featured on or as one of their earliest demo recordings. And then Burst Command Till War. Now, whether or not Burst Command Till War is actually maybe a little bit of a mistranslation, I don't really know. But it's a great track. As I say, it's very raw, it's very energetic, but it's thrashing, it's heavy, don't get me wrong, but it's very much that early black metal, that aggressive, fast-paced, very raw, very, very rough. There's no smooth edges here. But I think In the Sign of Evil is a fantastic EP, and I can't believe that I actually forgot it for this long. I think it's because the versions of the Sentence of Death and of In the Sign of Evil that I have, they are the Steam Hammer releases with, certainly in the Sodom case, we've got Obsessed by Cruelty on the same disc. So we've got the In the Sign of Evil tracks, and then we have the Obsessed by Cruelty tracks. So we've got the first album there as well. And then with Destruction, we've got Infernal Overkill on the same disc there. Sentence of Death. So for me, I think I probably just looked at the case and thought, yeah, first album, that's fine. Ignoring those crucial EPs. So we're going to travel across the world now. We're going to Brazil. And interestingly enough, when this EP or this material came out, it came out in 1985 as a split with another band which escapes me from the top of my head. I'll have to look that up on the Metal Encyclopedia later. But it came out as a split. It was only really released as a standalone EP in 1990 after the release of their first few albums. So Sepultura are an interesting band. Certainly a major influence and hugely important band, majorly influential in the expansion and the growth of early death metal, also thrash metal and black metal to an extent. And this EP that I've chosen here, this is the Bestial Devastation EP with its very juvenile, I'm not going to say juvenile actually, not juvenile, but very basic front cover there, a drawing or a painting there where we've got some demonic creature tearing apart something that resembles Notre Dame, don't really know. So you've got all the right things there. You've got a cool looking logo, hand drawn clearly. It's a bit primitive is the word I'm looking for, but you've got some brilliant songs here. So this particular version I've got is the tracks are included in the Morbid Visions album. We've got the 2 releases on 1 disc. This came out a while ago. This is a Roadrunner release. We've got some brilliant songs here. Bestial Devastation is a heavy, nasty track. Some great riffs there. More in line with early death metal, the kind of stuff that we're getting from Possessed at this time, or a little bit later, I should say. But you get some brilliant stuff like Antichrist or Necromancer. Those 2 tracks in particular for me, they definitely have stood the test of time, and I think that they are fantastic Sepultura tracks that stand up, well, no question, with some of the latter material. I think it's great. You've got such groove in those tracks in particular. You've got great melody, but it's heavy as hell. It's thrashing, but it's a little bit too extreme to comfortably sit in that thrash metal bracket. It's not Metallica. It's not, obviously they are a heavy band. They were an extreme band, certainly mind-blowing for the time. But this is more extreme in my opinion. No, it might not be as fast, but it's certainly more extreme. It's more dangerous, and it's certainly got a whole lot more darkness and atmosphere to it. We also have Warriors of Death, but we've also got, on this version, it includes a demo version of Necromancer and a live version of Antichrist called Anticop. But originally, when it was released as the split, we had those main tracks there: Bestial Devastation, Antichrist, Necromancer, and Warriors of Death. When it was released as a standalone EP, it featured the Troops of Doom song, re-recorded, which was a track that originally featured on the debut album there, but it's a re-recorded version. A slightly different version, actually sounds a little bit better, and it is in fact the version of Troops of Doom that features as a bonus song on the Schizophrenia re-releases that we've had from Roadrunner over the years. So that aside, I would say that Bestial Devastation is essential. It's an essential EP. It's great material, certainly when you take a track like Antichrist or Necromancer. It's very raw, it's very primitive, it's aggressive. It's great to hear Max Cavalera and his brother Igor Cavalera destroying it even way back then. It sounds brilliant. I love those songs, and I just love how raw and aggressive they are. So Bestial Devastation, Sepultura, another crucial EP. So there you have it. Those are my 3 EP choices for this particular episode. Just to remind us, we've got Sentence of Death by Destruction, released in 1984, with personal highlights for me and tracks to check out if you haven't heard them. Total Disaster, with some of the catchiest riffs, some of the most memorable riffs of their whole catalogue in my opinion. And Black Mass, which is very much rooted in that traditional heavy metal. You can hear the impact and the influence of bands like Diamond Head or Saxon, or Tigers of Pantang. You can hear that New Album influence there. Then we have the total opposite. We have rough, fast, loose, Motorhead and Venom influenced Sodom in 1985 with their In the Sign of Evil EP. And I cannot tell you how much I love this. And I don't really know why. I think it's just it's got a magic. It's got a certain charm to it because it's so raw and it's so primitive in a way. But it's great musicianship in its own way. It's got speed, it's got aggression. I think it's just good songs. So we've got 85 there with In the Sign of Evil. And last but not least, 1985/1990, but we're gonna say 1985 because that's when this material actually really did come about. Not with Morbid Visions, but with Bestial Devastation from Sepultura, Brazilian thrash metal gods. What do you think of these EPs? These are not unheard of and obscure, but they are certainly underground classics. So what do you think of them? If you're not familiar with them, I really would urge you to check them out. Highlights from In the Sign of Evil, forgot to mention that. I would say Outbreak of Evil and Witching Metal for me. I think those are great tracks. And then mentioned a couple of times on Bestial Devastation, Antichrist and Necromancer. Brilliant, brilliant songs. Check them out. You will not be disappointed. If you do love a good bit of thrash or black metal or death metal, pretty much just heavy extreme metal right across the board. Check it out, you'll love it. Thank you very much for watching, my friends. Do feel free to like and subscribe, and of course check back soon for more reviews and recommendations of all things good and heavy. Take care, my friends. As always, stay heavy.